Hare Krishna. So today we are here to discuss something on the book distribution of Srila Prabhupada. And here we have none other than the Minister of Book Distribution, His Grace Vijay Das Prabhuji. So today we are going to learn some tips of how we can approach the people and what are some challenges faced in distributing Bhagavad Gita and some other Vedic scriptures. And Vijay Prabhuji has been distributing a lot of millions of Bhagavad Gitas and other books of Srila Prabhupada worldwide, and now he is in Fiji and he is distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. We'll start with Vijay Das Prabhuji. We would like to ask question number 1. How have you come in Srila Prabhupada's mission, Prabhuji?
I was in Los Angeles. I grew up in Los Angeles. And I was starting to get a little curious about my life, why I'm here, what's the goal. And I was at a friend's home. And one Swami came on television. And he was speaking about spiritual subject matters. And it was sounding kind of interesting. So at the end of the program, they said there were some places there in Los Angeles where if one wants, one could find out more and get more involved in meditation. So I went to one of these places and I heard what they had to say. For about 3 days, they had discussion about what they're doing. Then they said that if you want, you can buy a mantra. So I was a little interested, so all right. So I bought my mantra, $120 for a 2-syllable mantra, Ainga. So the idea was you chant this mantra 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the evening. And this is supposed to help you become enlightened. So I was doing that. I didn't get enlightened, but they did help me slow down a little bit, just doing the meditation. The Southern California kid, so it was good just to slow down a bit. But I felt I wasn't satisfied with what I was given. So I was reading books also about philosophy and yoga and meditation. And I got one book by Baba Ramdas, who was a famous American guru at the time, back in the 70s. And at one point I just thought LA is probably not a good place for spirituality. So I decided to leave Los Angeles, looking for a paradise, some nice place where I could be with like-minded people that are also interested in meditation, yoga, like that. So I left Los Angeles. And I was reading this book by Baba Ramdas, and he mentioned that as one goes on one's spiritual journey, you become detached from material things, from family and materialistic people. And I thought, oh, that makes sense. You go on a spiritual journey, become detached from material things. So, as I'm traveling, someone stole all my things. And I thought, okay, that's good. I didn't give it up on my own. It was taken away, some higher power. So, then I thought, well, maybe the Bahamas would be good. Bahamas are some islands that are in the southeast of America. Some islands just some 100 miles from Florida, southern Florida. So I went down to Miami and I flew over to Bahamas. And I was very disappointed. It was quite materialistic. So I decided to leave the Bahamas back to Miami. But before I did, someone stole all my money. So now I don't have anything. But I was very happy because I knew I was going on a journey and I'd never go back to material life again. So I was very happy. Actually, up to that point in my life, I had never been so happy, because I knew something extraordinary was going to happen. So I was just anticipating the next page to open. So somehow I still had this book by Prabhupadas. I had my passport and I had my ticket. So I went back to Miami, flew back to Miami, not knowing what to do. So I just started hitchhiking. You know hitchhiking?
Yes, yes.
So someone picked me up and asked, so where are you going? I said, I don't know. God has me on this journey. I don't know where I'm going, but I like it. So he said, well, wherever you go, you're going to need some money. So he suggested I go down to Key West. Key West is the southernmost city in mainland America. So I took that as a direction of some higher power. I didn't know what it was. So I went down there, I got a job, and I'm still reading this book by Prabhupadas. And at the end of the book, he has books recommended to read. One of them was Bhagavad Gita. So when I saw those two words, Bhagavad Gita, I thought, well, this looks like a very interesting book. So I went to the public library there in Key West, and there was 4 different Bhagavad Gitas. So now what to do? Fortunately, the BBT made our Bhagavad Gita more attractive. So I pulled that one out, took it home and read it. Couldn't put it down. It was so interesting. So I was very satisfied that now I finally found the truth. So the journey ended. Now I found the truth. So from reading the Bhagavad Gita, I started chanting Hare Krishna. I threw the other mantra out the window, subtly. Huh? Ainga, yeah. I stopped chanting that one, and then I was chanting Hare Krishna. So I had this job where there was no one around, so I was just chanting Hare Krishna all day long. And then after 3 days of chanting Hare Krishna, I walked out of the exit of my business where I was working. And there was devotees right there on the pier chanting Hare Krishna. So I went to them and said, hey, you people, you're chanting the same mantra I chant. And they said, oh, you chant Hare Krishna? Yeah. All day long in that building for 3 days. So they preached to me for a couple hours and said, we have a little center here. You could come and you could stay with us. So I moved in with them that night. And I was there for maybe a week or 2. And I was reading one of the books that they had there. It's a Nectar of Instruction. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that if you don't chant 64 rounds a day, you're considered to be a fallen soul. So I was thinking, oh boy, I don't want to be a fallen soul. So I was, in my innocence, I didn't know. So I started chanting 64 rounds a day. But I was still working, so I couldn't do that. It was too much. So I brought it down to 32. So I was chanting 32 rounds a day. And then the devotee said, we have a temple. What they had there was just a little place where they could get together. It wasn't really a preaching center. So they said, you can go to the temple there in Miami and actually get trained. So I took that as Krishna's direction. So I went to Miami, and it was a beautiful center we had there. We had about 8 acres, and there was 6 acres of just flowers. We were sending flowers to all the temples in America. So my first service was picking flowers. And there was peacocks, and there was ducks, and there was 60 mango trees or something like that. A lot of mango trees. Banana trees, all types of tropical plants were there, because Yeah, it's a tropical place, southern Florida. So yeah, it was very beautiful. When I left LA, I was looking for paradise. So Krishna sent me.
Ultimately, you got the paradise. So it's very nice, Maharaj. It's very much inspiring. As a young youth in Fiji, we lack a lot of culture in Fiji because we are not much trained about our culture, like our personality, how we should be and who we are. So by looking at your personality, Prabhu, it has been very inspiring these 3 days having your association. So my next question is, how many times have you come with Srila Prabhupada in Srila Prabhupada's association?
Actually, I joined in 1978, so I just missed his association. 9 months after Prabhupada had left, I joined Prabhupada's group.
But nevertheless, we still feel the presence of Srila Prabhupada in the group, right? So my next question is, what's your experience after joining Srila Prabhupada's movement? How have ISKCON treated you?
Oh, very good. As I mentioned, my first service was picking flowers and also washing Krishna's pots. So that was also very nice. And then after 2 months, they asked if the temple president asked if I was bold. And I said, yeah, I can be pretty bold. I guess he thought that was a prerequisite for book distribution, which is, you have to be pretty bold. So they put me on book distribution. And we used to distribute books at the street lights. Street light, cars would stop and then you offer them a BTG. It was very difficult because there was other groups also doing the street lights, so people were fried, so it was difficult. So therefore book distribution, BTG distribution was very difficult. So it was so difficult I thought maybe there's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita that can help me through this difficulty. So the first verse I ever learned was Yang hinav yati entiete purusam purusarsava sumadutta sukham jam sumatit mayakapate. That one who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. So they kind of helped me through. So then after some time they put me in the airports out, and then I was distributing books in the airports. So that was a little easier.
Because there was a lot of people coming and going.
Yeah.
So how have been your experience at the airport?
It was very nice. We distributed thousands of books, not millions. I don't think I distributed 1 million books. But as I mentioned earlier, I think last week, we've distributed over 500 million books throughout the movement.
Wow, that's very great.
So the combination of all the devotees, the book distributors together, I think about 570 million books throughout the world. So
this is very nice, Prabhuji. That one personality, His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, had made a scripture that a person keeps reading and it never gets bored. So this is very nice that I heard what you say, your experience after joining ISKCON. My next question would be, Guru, what are the difficulties faced while distributing books? Srila Prabhupada's books when they are distributing?
well, when we're distributing books, sometimes we get a lot of rejection, a lot of no's. So sometimes that's very difficult. I was just speaking about this in Russia to some devotees, how rejection can be a little difficult. And one of the devotees said that, I can't stand rejection. I can't stand no's. But actually they're very good because they help us to develop tolerance and understanding that Krishna is in control. We're not in control, we're trying. But Krishna, ultimately, he's in control. There's a nice verse in the Bhagavad Gita that I quite often remember when distributing books. Krishna says, Upadrishtanamanta cha bharta bhakti maheshwara paramatmika chakra. He says within this body there's another transcendental enjoyer. He's the Lord, he's the supreme proprietor, he's the overseer and permitter. So this is the position of Krishna. He is the overseer, he is the permitter. Nothing happens without his sanction. So book distribution is an opportunity to surrender to Krishna, to understand these realities. Also another verse that I quite often remember, the Bhagavad Gita. Labante Brahma Nirvana Vasikshamakama China Dvaitya Tapana Sarvadeta. The one who is free of the dualities that arise from doubt. This one little line is very powerful. One who is free of the dualities that arise from doubt. So if we're faithful, then whatever happens, we won't complain because Krishna is in control. Whatever Krishna arranges, it's for our spiritual growth. So it's if we get upset, then we're doubting that Krishna is working for our growth. He wants us to advance in spiritual life. So therefore a devotee thinks that whatever happens, it's Krishna's mercy. He doesn't become disturbed or anxious or complain. No. Beyond dualities. The Bhagavad Gita quite often, this word is there, dualities. So we have to go beyond the dualities. Oh, this is good, this is bad. He gave a nice donation. Oh, those people said no, that's not good. So I have to. But these are some of the difficulties. Is dealing with our mind, just dealing with our mind, because the mind, as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, it's a rascal, and it doesn't want to surrender. It avoids surrender because it's a non-devotee. So, yeah, just dealing with the mind is probably the most difficult thing. But as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, we have to beat the mind 100 times in the morning with a shoe, 100 times in the evening, broomstick. And the way we beat the mind is by hearing. We beat the mind with an intelligence. And the intelligence is nurtured by hearing Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, hearing Prabhupada, hearing our Guru, our spiritual leaders. This beats the mind. So this is probably the biggest challenge, is dealing with the mind, the actions of the mind.
So how can you get this mind into our control?
Good sadhana. You have to have good sadhana. Chant our rounds as early as we can. Prabhupada said the best way, or the best time to chant our rounds is before Mangalarti.
Wow.
Not easy for everyone.
You have to wake up 2 o'clock.
You have to take rest early and get up early. And read Prabhupada's books. So this inspires us to distribute books and inspires us to surrender to Krishna.
It's very nice. How to overcome these challenges, like when you give someone a Bhagavad Gita or even some other scriptures, back to God or something, there's some books, and when the person rejects, doesn't want to take the book, like if we are approaching someone, then how can we just, in a very simple way, we can tell them what is this? This is the ultimate taste and ultimate goal of our life. So how can we just say it in a very simple way?
Well, sometimes people, they're not interested, which is understandable. People have different religions, different concepts of life, therefore they may not be interested. So Krishna is known as Diyam Piti, which means he's the Lord of intelligence. So we have to pray to Krishna for intelligence, to convince people to take books. In a nice way, we don't want to be pushy, but in a nice way, we want to convince people to take books. And people, quite often, they'll come up with excuses why they don't want to take a book. Now, purity is the force. If we're sincerely, purely trying to give people Krishna, then they'll feel that. And it's amazing how people will take books so easily and give donations so easily when we're in the proper consciousness. Actually, book distribution, 95% of it, 95% of our ability to distribute books is in our consciousness. So we have to have good, proper Krishna consciousness, and that will help us.
So the ultimate thing is that we have to purify our consciousness in order to spread Srila Prabhupada's mission and spread Srila Prabhupada's books. So please share some tips of distributing books to the faithless people with examples, like with some examples, maybe with some stories you have experienced in your life.
Yeah, it's not unusual to approach people that are of another faith, Christian, for instance. Here in Fiji and America, all over the world, a lot of Christians. So they'll say, no, I'm of another belief. I'm a Christian. So I said, no, we're not trying to change your belief, but there's always more to learn about God. So when we approach them with another religion, they become defensive. So we put that defense down. No, we're not trying to change your belief. There's always more to learn about God. And it's very good you believe in God. We're on the same side. There's a lot of atheism growing in the world. So this will help you even to maybe become a better Christian. There's so much information about God. He's unlimited, so there's so much to learn. So whether one is a Christian or a Muslim, say the same thing to the Muslim. We're not trying to change your belief. And I was distributing books one time in Australia, and I knocked on a door, and one person said, he's not interested. He saw I had the Bhagavad Gita. I'm sorry, I'm not interested. I worship Satan. So I said, well, this book is about God, so you should know your enemy. And he said, all right. Good point. I'll take one. So he gave a nice donation and took a Bhagavad Gita. And hopefully he understood that God is his best friend and Satan is his enemy. But yeah, Krishna, he's the Lord of intelligence. And if we're sincere, then Krishna will give us guidance on how to distribute more books.
Very nice. Would you like to share some experience of Fiji's atmosphere, like how people have books gone, and when you have distributed books to them, what were their feedbacks or reactions?
Yeah, Fiji is very nice. I'm surprised and impressed that people, both the Fijians and the Indian residents here, are very interested in these books and giving donations. Nice experience. Yeah. One time I was asked, well, what types of people are taking books? And I said, if a devotee is in good consciousness, anybody will take a book. Anybody will take a book if we're in good consciousness. If we're not in good consciousness, even the persons who are interested won't take a book. I remember that one devotee, he was distributing books and he wasn't in very good consciousness. And he was speaking to a person who was interested in the books he had. And the person said, I'm interested in these things, but I won't take a book from you. to get that. He felt a little bad. And he knew it was because of his low consciousness. So we have to have a high consciousness. By the mercy of Krishna.
So, in order to get a higher consciousness, a very purified consciousness, this sadhana process is very much important. And along with that, Mangalarti is one of the very important aspect of this devotional service. So, would you say something on Mangalarti, like what it does to us, why should we really attend it, and how it helps us?
Yeah, Mangalarti means auspicious worship of the Lord. It's an auspicious way to start the day, to glorify Krishna, to glorify your devotee, to sing and dance for the pleasure of the Lord. We're the only people in the world that are singing and dancing at 4:30 in the morning.
Everywhere they're ending in the clubs around 4:30. We are starting our dance.
They're of another consciousness, intoxicated. We're the only ones that aren't intoxicated.
Aren't intoxicated. It's very nice.
Sometimes intoxicated, a little. Devotees get a little intoxicated on Mangalarti.
So if someone becomes a devotee of Srila Prabhupada, of Sri Krishna, how should his personality be like? How can he be trained to become a very good devotee of Srila Prabhupada and Sri Krishna?
Srila Prabhupada has set up our society very nicely. All we have to do is follow. 16 rounds, Mangalarti, Guru Puja, read Prabhupada's books. Of course, this is if you're living in the temple. A lot of devotees aren't living in the temple now. But as much as possible, they should also have this program that Prabhupada set up. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that if one is a householder and is still practicing Krishna consciousness sincerely, then their home becomes Goloka Vrindavan. So it's not that only the people who are living in the temples can advance nicely in Krishna consciousness. Anybody can. Actually, Prabhupada was asked that. A devotee asked Prabhupada, can a devotee advance in Krishna consciousness living outside the temple? Because back in the early days, practically everybody lived in the temple. And if you lived outside the temple, pretty much you were in Maya. Now, most devotees live outside the temple. So Prabhupada said, yes, you could advance anywhere in Krishna consciousness. But just like a businessman, if he's doing some business and he's working near the stock market, then he has much more opportunity to have success in his money-making business, because that's where the action is, the stock market. So similarly, you could advance anywhere in Krishna consciousness, but if you're living in the temple, then you're right there with Krishna. So it's it's more. Plus, there's devotees there. There's much more activity, spiritual activity taking place. So it's more conducive for advancing Krishna consciousness.
We are very glad that you are here in Fiji, and this is your second time in Fiji. When was the first time you visited Fiji?
Somewhere between 10 and 20 years ago. I think about 17 years ago.
That means Sri Radha Guru Bihari was built. That was installed here.
The temple was here.
So, to the youths in Fiji, what would you like to give a message to them? Because in Fiji, the youths, they don't have a lot of consciousness about God. Last night, I approached one of the youth, and I was trying to tell him about God, and he was just rejecting, and he wanted more material life. He's saying that I want to become something very good, and I want to have a lot of money, and I want to buy this, I want to have a good house, good car. Does that really give peace to a person who has a lot of money and a car?
No, therefore the main disease in the world is stress. People are very stressed out. They want money and they want sense gratification, but this doesn't bring happiness to the soul. Like there was one devotee distributing books in an airport in America, and she asked the person she was speaking to, "What kind of work do you do?" And he said he works at a pharmacy. And she said, "Well, what's the most popular drug being sold?" And he said it's a drug that helps people with ulcers, that have ulcers. And they found that people that have a lot of ulcers, that comes from stress. And from stress, so many other diseases come. So, yeah, it's not, these things don't bring pleasure to the soul. But it's Kali Yuga, so people are just bewildered by Maya. So, to convince them otherwise, that their happiness will come from chanting Hare Krishna and serving Krishna, is very difficult, because Krishna says, Daivi Hesugana Maya, this divine energy of mind, consistent of the three-one material nature, is very difficult to overcome, but one who surrenders unto me can very easily cross it. So people are in Maya, so it's difficult. But we try anyway, and there's some people that are interested, but it's rare.
So would you like to say something else from your side about this book distribution and all the devotional lives that you have experienced?
Well, I can tell you personally that my most wonderful experiences in this life was on book distribution, because it's an activity where it gives impetus to our advancing in Krishna consciousness. Because when you go out and distribute books, you know you're going to be out there, you're going to be meeting people that are non-devotees. So we have to be strong. We have to rise for the occasion. And that comes from sadhana. So it gives impetus to have good sadhana. Book distribution. And it's a wonderful activity. Quite often I'm on book distribution, I'm smiling so much. I gotta massage my smile muscles. It's a good problem.
So to distribute Srila Prabhupada's book means a person is alive, because he has a smile on his face. So to keep a smile on your face every time, is it a difficult task or is it an easy task?
Well, if we're on material consciousness, it's difficult. But again, if we have good consciousness, then we'll be happy. If we understand I'm a soul, the person I'm speaking to is a soul, then just that understanding, that brings joy. So yeah, we have to also be on the spiritual platform. We can't be on bodily conception. If we're on the bodily conception of life and we're trying to convince them to take a book, then they're on the bodily conception of life, we're on the bodily conception of life. We may be attached to the results or attached to some fame or adoration, but this brings us to the material platform, and therefore it makes it difficult to distribute. So this gives also impetus to rise to the spiritual platform.
It's nice. So we have got a chance to go to each and every schools in Fiji and teach them about who we are and what is our purpose. So can you elaborate more on how can we understand that we are not this body but we are in the spirit souls? How can we teach the natives that this body is just temporary because it's gonna leave in a few moments. We don't know who is going to die at what moment. So how can we teach them?
Well, we're getting Krishna's message in the Bhagavad Gita. I could explain how this body is just a dress for the soul. Krishna gives the example as the bodied soul continually passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, and passes the body, but the soul passes into another body in time of death. So Krishna gives examples. Just like this dress is going to get old, we're going to get a new dress. So this body is going to get old. We got to give it up. We don't want to die. Nobody wants to die. And we don't die. The reason we don't want to die is because we don't die when the soul within. So this gives, this knowledge gives understanding of the reality that we're spiritual beings.
It's very nice. It's very easy to now tell the people of Fiji what is the aim and the goal of life. Sanatan Goswami says sadhya sadhana means the goal and the process. So you have very simply explained it to us and the people of Fiji. Now it will be very easy for us. So thank you so much for taking out your time and giving your time to help us know how we can distribute Srila Prabhupada's books, how we can overcome the challenges being faced while distributing the books. And your experience that you have shared, it was quite really inspiring. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.